All right, let's dive right in, shall we? Today's deep dive takes us into the world of Sherlock Holmes. The Sign of the Four, to be exact.
Ah, classic.
We're going to be looking at the plot, of course, but also some of the bigger themes that come up and, the impact this book has had on, well, everything.
It's hard to overstate its influence, really.
We're going to try to unearth some of those hidden gems for you. Think of this as your express ticket to really understanding the Sign of the Four, without actually having to read the whole thing.
The Cliff's Notes version, but way more fun.
Exactly. And speaking of fun, did you know that the original title of this book was actually The Sign of the Four, or The Problem of the Sholtos?
Oh, yeah. Try saying that 3 times fast.
Right. Bit of a mouthful.
Yeah.
But it does hint at the complexity of the story.
It really does. There's a lot going on beneath the surface.
Well, let's jump right in then. The mystery starts with Mary Morstan.
Right. She comes to Sherlock Holmes because her father, Captain Morstan, vanished years ago.
And now she's getting these pearls in the mail every year.
Can you imagine? Just a single beautiful pearl arriving on your doorstep annually.
And no clue where it's coming from, just a reminder of this loss.
Haunting. And brilliantly sets the stage for a mystery.
Absolutely. But it gets even better. They find a map among Captain Morstan's things. And get this, it's inscribed with the Sign of the Four and a list of names. Jonathan Small, Muhammad Singh, Abdullah Khan, Dost Akbar.
Quite the lineup.
Not to mention some weird symbols that look like crosses. I'm already getting chills.
See, this is what Conan Doyle does so well. He creates an atmosphere. You can practically feel the fog rolling in over Baker Street.
And sense the story's secrets lurking everywhere. Okay, so let's break it down a bit. We've got stolen treasure, betrayal, a quest for revenge.
It all revolves around the Agra treasure.
Oh, right, that fortune in jewels stolen during the Indian Rebellion of 1857.
Jonathan Small, Major Sholto, and Captain Morstan made a pact to split the loot. But as you can guess, things go very, very wrong.
Major Sholto, he's the one who double-crosses the others, hides the treasure all for himself.
And leads Captain Morstan to believe that he died trying to get it back.
Which brings us to this really interesting aspect of the story. Colonialism. I mean, Jonathan Small, he was a soldier, lost his leg to a crocodile in the Ganges.
Oof, that's rough.
Then gets caught up in the chaos of the Sepoy Mutiny, ends up imprisoned on the Andaman Islands.
And that's where he starts plotting his revenge.
Yeah, it's a powerful reminder of the brutal realities of colonialism, how the British Empire really profited from, well, exploiting India. This isn't just about some treasure hunt.
No, it forces us to look at some uncomfortable truths about history.
Exactly. And then you've got Major Sholto living in fear of being found out, haunted by his past.
That Agra treasure becomes a symbol of his guilt.
And the corrupting influence of greed.
Right.
Right.
This idea that the pursuit of wealth can poison even the closest relationship.
It really makes you think about the price of getting what you want and how those consequences can stretch across generations.
Now, the Sign of the Four isn't just about these external conflicts. It also gives us a peek into the inner workings of Sherlock Holmes himself.
Yeah. We see him struggling with drug dependency and this restlessness he gets when there's no case to solve.
Watson describes it as a kind of nervous energy, this constant need for a mental challenge. It's as if solving mysteries is the only thing that keeps him together.
So even the great Sherlock Holmes, he's got his demons, huh?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that makes him all the more fascinating. He's not just this brilliant machine. He's human, flaws and all. But even amidst all this darkness and danger, there's a little glimmer of hope.
Oh, you mean the romance?
Yeah. The budding relationship between Watson and Mary Morstan.
Tell me more.
Well, their connection unfolds amidst this whole thrilling investigation, which I think is rather sweet. This reminder that even in the face of danger, love can still find a way.
It adds such a human touch to the story.
And it makes the ending even more poignant. Because Mary, she ends up losing out on her share of the Agra treasure. But she gains something maybe even more valuable.
Love. And a future with Watson.
Exactly. Which kind of makes you wonder, what really matters in the end, right? Material wealth or human connection?
That's a great point. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We've covered a lot of ground already, and there's still so much more to unpack in Sign of the Four.
We've only just scratched the surface. In part 2, we're going to dive deeper into the characters, all the twists and turns of the plot, and those broader themes that make this story such a classic.
Sounds good to me. We'll be right back with part 2 of our deep dive into the Sign of the Four, so stick around. Welcome back to our deep dive into the Sign of the Four. It's like when you find out a family secret, something that totally changes how you view your whole family history.
Oh, yeah,
That's kind of what Mary Morstan goes through in this story.
it is. And speaking of uncovering the truth, we should talk about the other characters in The Sign of the Four. I mean, we've touched on Holmes and Watson,
Right.
but Conan Doyle really gives us some memorable characters in this book.
Oh, for sure. Like Jonathan Small, the guy behind the whole Agra treasure plot. He's the one sending those pearls to Mary.
And what's so interesting about him is that he's not just your typical bad guy. He's got this complexity to him, driven by this, like, thirst for justice, but also betrayal, revenge.
Yeah.
I mean, remember, he lost his leg to a crocodile in the Ganges.
Oh, yeah. And then those years imprisoned on the Andaman Islands. Talk about shaping a person.
Absolutely. He's a product of his environment, for sure. And that environment was shaped by colonialism.
Yeah. You really see how the British Empire's actions directly impacted his life, pushed him down in this path of revenge.
Exactly. And then there's Tonga.
Oh, right. His accomplice. That small but deadly Andaman Islander.
He's shrouded in this mystery, adds this element of the exotic to the whole story.
And his loyalty to Small, even killing for him, it really highlights the intense bonds people form when facing hardship.
Oh, definitely. But it makes you think about loyalty, you know. It can be a good thing, but it can also lead to bad things.
True, a double-edged sword. Now, what about the Sholto brothers? Thaddeus and Bartholomew.
They're fascinating. They're like two sides of the same coin, really, showing us different ways to deal with guilt.
Right, Thaddeus, he's the one with the conscience, trying to make up for what his father did.
By sending Mary those pearls.
Exactly. He's torn between honoring his father's memory and, well, doing the right thing.
Wrestling with the sins of his father. You know, that idea comes up a lot. Makes you wonder if we're all just bound by the actions of our parents.
And then you've got Bartholomew, way more secretive, suspicious.
He's holding on to that treasure,
Mm,
all those ill-gotten gains, and it leads to his downfall.
it does. He lets fear and paranoia take over, isolates himself, and ultimately pays the price for it.
He does.
And then there's Mary Morstan.
Right. She's not just some helpless victim.
No. She's the one who gets the whole investigation going, seeks out Holmes, bravely faces all these mysteries surrounding her father's disappearance.
She's smart, resourceful. I mean, she's the Victorian new woman, you know. Independent, making her own way.
And her romance with Watson, it adds that human connection to the story.
It does. Reminds us that even when things are dark and dangerous, love can still bloom. Speaking of dark and dangerous, that murder scene, Bartholomew Sholto's death, it's a turning point in the story.
Oh, totally. Really raises the stakes.
And how he's killed that poison thorn. It's so striking,
Yeah.
almost ritualistic.
And it happens in a locked room. Adds to the whole mystery and suspense. That's when Holmes really shines.
Oh, absolutely.
Observing all those tiny details like footprints, cigar ash, even the smell of creosote.
It's incredible.
It really is. You see his genius at work. And then there's that chase scene on the Thames. Gets your heart pounding, that's for sure.
For sure. It takes us out of those foggy London streets and onto the river.
Holmes and Watson chasing Jonathan Small and Tonga, trying to get that stolen treasure back.
Pure action and adventure. Reminds you that this isn't just some intellectual puzzle.
It's not.
It's got thrills.
And in the end, the Agra treasure, it's lost. Gone forever. At the bottom of the Thames.
It's kind of fitting, isn't it? All that greed and violence
Mm-hmm.
swallowed up by the river.
Yeah. It's this reminder that material things don't last. That real value comes from human connection and fighting for justice.
It does. So we've talked about the characters, the plot, the deeper themes.
Mm-hmm.
But what makes The Sign of the Four still resonate with people today? I mean, it was written over 100 years ago.
I know. We'll explore that when we come back for part 3 of our deep dive. Welcome back to our deep dive.
So we've spent some time with The Sign of the Four, gotten to know the characters, followed the twists and turns. But there's one big question that keeps coming back to me.
Oh, what's that?
Why does this story still resonate with us today? I mean, it's set in Victorian England. It should feel dated, but it doesn't, does it? It's remarkable, isn't it? How relevant it still feels. And I think it's because even though, yeah, it's set in a specific time, the themes are timeless. Justice, revenge, the things that make us human. We all deal with those, no matter what century we're in.
That's true. It's like they're woven into our very being. But also, maybe it's the characters themselves.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson, they've become icons.
Right. They're like the ultimate detective duo.
And they've inspired so many other stories in film, TV, even video games. That dynamic, it never gets old.
It's true.
Yeah.
But why the Sign of the Four in particular? There are lots of Holmes stories. What makes this one stand out?
Well, for one thing, the mystery is just so captivating. Stolen treasure, a secret pact, murders. You're hooked from the
And
start.
you're constantly guessing.
Right. There are twists and turns, false leads, all that good stuff Conan Doyle was so good at. You can't put the book down.
You really can't. And then there's the whole exotic element. That Agra treasure, it takes us to colonial India, a place that would have seemed incredibly mysterious back then, full of adventure and secrets. And you can't forget the action. That chase scene on the Thames, it's not your typical stuffy mystery.
No way. It's exciting. It's got action, adventure, and then those brilliant moments of deduction from Holmes. It's a great mix.
It is. And Conan Doyle's writing, it just pulls you in. He describes things so vividly, you feel like you're right there. No wonder this story gets adapted again and again.
Oh, yeah. Every generation seems to find something new in it. They emphasize different themes, update the setting, explore the characters in new ways. It's amazing how adaptable this story is.
It really is. So what can we take away from our deep dive into The Sign of the Four?
Good question.
I think for me, it's a reminder that even these classic stories can still surprise us.
Oh, definitely.
They offer insights into who we are, explore those universal themes, and they're still so entertaining, even after all this time.
Well said. They remind us about the power of a good story.
Exactly. And with that, I think it's time to wrap up our deep dive into The Sign of the Four. Hopefully you've learned something new, and maybe, just maybe, we've sparked your curiosity to go check out the story for yourself.
That's always the goal.
It is. So until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep diving deep into the stories that capture your imagination.